They locked me in a dark bathroom for hours. Humiliated and abandoned by her family, he walked away with a plan for revenge. They locked me in the bathroom on the night of her brother's wedding. The lights went out, and all I could hear was their laughter, echoing through the door like a pack of hyenas. "Aversi, learn your lesson," they shouted, mocking my silence. The sound of their footsteps faded, but the humiliation stayed, wrapping around my chest like a rope pulled too tight. I didn't scream, didn't beg. I sat in the dark, counting the seconds until I understood that this wasn't just another joke. It was a message. You don't belong here. I never went back inside the party. 3 years later, she would come searching for me with desperation in her eyes, and I would finally whisper back the words I had buried that night. Now it's your turn to learn a lesson. My name is Mark. I'm 30, and for the last 2 years I've been married to Kimberly. At least that's what the papers say. In reality, I've spent those 2 years apologizing for existing. Her family never welcomed me. From the beginning, they looked at me the way people look at a stray dog someone drags home. Half amused, half disgusted. Kimberly's cousins were the worst. Timothy, the oldest, a construction worker with a voice like cinder blocks thrown at your face. Every word meant to bruise. Ronald, the middle one, who thought cruelty was comedy, his jokes always slicing someone else open. And Jason, the youngest, who followed the other two like a shadow, desperate to prove himself, laughing at anything they said, no matter how vile. To them, I was the perfect toy. I never fought back, never raised my voice. Easy prey. Every family gathering became a stage, and I was their entertainment. They hid my plate of food and pretended to be shocked when I asked for it. They moved my car so I'd wander the parking lot like a fool. They poured salt into my beer and filmed my grimace, roaring as if my disgust was the punchline of a grand joke. Once, they stripped my wallet while I used the bathroom and tucked the money between sofa cushions, watching me search like an idiot while they suggested maybe I'd dropped it in the street. It didn't stop there. At a barbecue, they drowned my food in spices and recorded my choking cough, uploading it with the caption, "Mark can't handle anything." My humiliation was their content. But the night I came home from work exhausted and found the locks on my own house changed, that was when I felt the ground tilt beneath me. I stood outside in the cold for 2 hours while Kimberly feigned ignorance, keys jingling somewhere in her pocket. The cruelest moment, though, came when they turned my marriage into a circus act. They bet money on how long I could carry Kimberly in my arms. "Come on, Mark. Show us how strong you are," they jeered. When my arms gave way, laughter exploded. Timothy sneered. "Are you sure your husband is even a man? He doesn't defend himself like one." Ronald grinned and added, "My 15-year-old sister has more balls than he does." And Jason leaned close to Kimberly, whispering loud enough for me to hear, "When you want a real man, cousin, I'll find you one." Kimberly laughed. She laughed with them. Not once did she defend me. Not once. At best, she excused them with a smile. "You know Mark's sensitive." At worst, she joined in. When I confronted her in private, she dismissed me with a shrug. "That's family, Mark. Learn to take a joke." So I swallowed it. Every sneer, every jab, every humiliation. I convinced myself that love was stronger, that love was worth enduring this theater of cruelty. But the truth ate away at me. My confidence shrank. At work, my boss noticed my silence, my hesitation. "Everything okay at home?" he asked more than once. I lied. Inside, every insult replayed like an echo chamber. When Kimberly's brother Jose announced his wedding, I clung to a fragile hope. Kimberly swore it would be different this time. "They'll behave," she promised. "They'll finally see you as part of the family." I wanted to believe her. The hall glowed with chandeliers, round tables draped in white linen, centerpieces of fresh flowers perfuming the air with false hope. I wore the navy blue suit Kimberly had given me for our anniversary, the one she said made me look like someone important. For a moment, I thought maybe, just maybe, this night would heal something. But the shadows were already waiting. I ran my fingers through my hair more times than necessary, tugging at the strands until they fell into place. Even bought new shoes because tonight everything had to be perfect. I wasn't just going to a wedding, I was walking into a battlefield, and I wanted to at least look like I belonged. Kimberly was stunning in her emerald green dress, the color shimmering like envy itself. For a fleeting moment, I thought, maybe this time things will be different. Maybe, just maybe, this was the night they'd finally see me as more than the punchline of their cruel jokes. The ceremony passed in a blur, smiles, vows, the hollow clink of glasses. But the calm was temporary. As the reception began and the alcohol started to flow freely, I felt the shift. I saw it in the way Timothy clapped me on the back a little too hard, in Ronald's grin as he handed me a glass of champagne, with a glint of something darker in his eyes. Even Jason, always the quiet one, watched me closely, the corners of his lips twitching into an almost imperceptible chuckle. I tried to hold my ground. Kimberly danced with me during the first song, the weight of her body in my arms feeling like a momentary reprieve. When it ended, she kissed me on the cheek and whispered in my ear, "See? It wasn't that hard to fit in, was it? I thought they'd finally accept me as part of the family." I wanted to believe her. For once, I wanted to believe in the possibility of change. But just an hour later, after the wine had loosened tongues and the atmosphere had shifted into something darker, Timothy appeared at my side. "Hey, Mark," he said, his voice a bit too friendly. "Come with us. We want to show you something." My instincts screamed for me to stay put, but Kimberly was already laughing with her aunts, waving me off as though everything was fine. Part of me hoped, no, wanted, to believe they had finally accepted me. So I followed them. We passed through the service area, the sharp clinking of trays and the low murmur of the party fading into the background with each step. I could feel something crawling up my spine, but I ignored it. Timothy led the way, a familiar smirk playing at the edges of his lips. "This is the bathroom the employees use," Ronald said, pointing to a small, unmarked door. It was windowless, cramped, barely big enough for one person. "It's broken, but we want to show you something inside." I should have walked away. I should have turned and left right then, but the naivety of hope was stronger than my instincts. Maybe, just maybe, this time they were letting me in on something. They pushed the door open and I stepped inside. The stale air hit me first, the kind of thick, suffocating air that never quite feels right. And then the door slammed shut behind me. I heard the latch click, and for a moment I stood frozen, disbelief washing over me like a tidal wave. "Hey, open the door!" I shouted, my voice coming out more panicked than I intended. Outside, their laughter rang out. Timothy's voice cut through the silence. "See if that teaches you not to be such a—" "Stop!" I yelled, pounding on the door. "Let me out!" "Calm down, princess," Ronald shouted, his voice dripping with mockery. "It's just to make you a man." And then the lights went out. Total darkness. For a few seconds I stood motionless, trying to make sense of it. The laughter outside grew fainter until all I could hear was the thudding of my own heartbeat. I banged on the door harder. "Open this now!" I screamed, my voice raw, but the only reply was the faint sound of Jason's voice. "Maybe in there you'll grow some balls." The walls felt like they were closing in. The air grew thicker, suffocating, like a tomb. I groped around blindly, my hands tracing the cold, unforgiving tiles. There was no escape, no window, no way out. Just the oppressive dark, pulling me deeper into a pit of panic. At first I thought it was a prank. I thought they would open the door, laughing at how terrified I was. But the minutes stretched into an eternity. No footsteps, no voices. Just silence, a silence so thick it choked me. I screamed until my throat felt raw. My breathing quickened, panic gnawing at me from all sides. The walls seemed to be closing in, the darkness pressing down on me, and I couldn't even see my own hand in front of my face. I was trapped. Outside, the party continued as if nothing had happened. The music played, glasses clinked, and laughter filled the air. But in that room, in that suffocating blackness, I understood. I understood exactly who my wife was, who her family was. I was nothing but a joke to them. My pain was their entertainment, my humiliation, just another story to tell. And in that moment, I realized that for her, for them, I would always be the outsider. 3 hours. 3 hours locked in that tiny, dark bathroom. It was the hall concierge who finally found me as he made his rounds for the night. An older man, worried at first, thinking I was some sort of burglar trying to hide. When he saw me, drenched in sweat, my suit crumpled and soaked through with panic, his expression changed. "Sir, are you okay?" he asked, helping me out of that hellish room. I couldn't speak. My throat was too dry, my words lost somewhere deep inside. The suit I'd chosen so carefully was ruined, a symbol of how far I had fallen. The marks on my hands were still raw from where I'd pounded on the door. My hair clung to my forehead, damp and matted, but the world outside hadn't stopped. The music throbbed on, cheerful and oblivious. Glasses clinked in toasts, laughter floated above the crowd, all while I had been locked in that suffocating room, screaming for help. I dragged myself toward the main hall, each step a struggle. My legs shook. Whether from exhaustion or the rage bubbling up from deep within me, I couldn't tell. All I knew was that I was done. Kimberly saw me before I saw her. She was laughing, champagne in hand, her cousins surrounding her like vultures. But when our eyes met, her smile faltered for a fraction of a second. She walked toward me, but there was no urgency in her steps. No rush to apologize, no sign that she realized what had just happened. "There you are, Mark," she said. The words hollow, her smile forced as if she were saying the words she thought I wanted to hear. I stared at her, not saying a word. Her green eyes, once vibrant and full of warmth, now looked as cold and lifeless as glass. I didn't speak, didn't acknowledge her at all. My silence must have spoken louder than any words could, because Timothy appeared behind her, his smile full of malice. He had a sneer playing on his lips, and his brothers flanked him like wolves circling their prey. "How was the ride, Mark?" Timothy asked with a wink, his voice dripping with mockery. That was when I knew. Kimberly hadn't just known about what happened. She had been in on it the whole time. She was part of the plan. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. I turned on my heel and walked toward the exit, every step away from them a small act of freedom. Kimberly called my name, but I didn't turn around. I didn't need to hear anything else from her. When I got home that night, I didn't shower to wash away the dirt or the sweat. I showered to rid myself of the feeling of being trapped. The hot water burned against my skin, but it could never scrub away the humiliation. It could never wash away the fear that had settled deep in my bones. 2 hours later, Kimberly walked through the door as if nothing had happened, as if the entire night had been a dream. She entered the bedroom, looking at me with that same calm smile she always wore, like the woman I had once known. "You're overreacting," she said nonchalantly, settling herself on the bed. "It was just a joke, Mark. That's how they are." "Just a joke," I snapped. "A joke?" My voice cracked, the words tumbling out. "Locking me in a bathroom for 3 hours? In the dark? With no light, no way out? Is that a joke to you?" She shrugged, uninterested. "I didn't think it was that big of a deal." And that was when it hit me. The brutal, undeniable truth. I had never been more than an accessory to her. To her and her family, I wasn't a man. I wasn't a partner. I was just some toy they could discard when they were bored. A joke, a punching bag. The days that followed felt like I was living inside a surreal play, one where I was no longer an active participant, but a mere actor in someone else's twisted narrative. Kimberly went through the motions like she always did. She made breakfast, kissed me on the cheek as I left for work, asked how my day was, her voice soft but hollow. But I wasn't there anymore. My body might have followed the routine, but my mind had already begun its work, plotting, planning. Timothy called me 2 days later. His voice, amused, echoed through the phone as if nothing had happened. "Hey, Mark, you're not upset about Saturday, are you? It was just to lighten the mood." I didn't respond. Then Ronald sent me a message on WhatsApp. Ha ha ha, bro. You should have seen your face when you came out of that bathroom. You looked like a ghost. I blocked his number. Jason tried a different approach. He showed up at my work during my lunch break. He tried to buy me a beer, acting like it was some kind of peace offering, some olive branch. We need to talk, man to man, he said with that same taunting smile. I told the security guard to turn him away, but the decisive moment came when I overheard Kimberly talking on the phone with a friend. I wasn't supposed to hear it, but I did. Yes, the boys went a little too far, she said, her voice casual as though discussing the weather. But Mark took it very personally. You know how he is, I'm too sensitive for these things. I heard her laugh. She was laughing at me, laughing about what had happened, as if it were just another funny story to tell. That was when it clicked. That was when I realized how deep this cut ran. To them, I would never be one of them. To them, I would always be the joke, the odd man out, the weakling. That night, in the silence of our home, I began to plan my escape. I opened a new bank account at a different bank, setting aside everything I could. The moment was coming. It was inevitable. And when it came, I would be ready. I began with the money, half of our joint savings, my earnings, my sweat, my hours. But I took it in small increments, careful not to draw her attention. Each transfer was a secret brick laid in the foundation of my escape. At night, when Kimberly slept beside me with her steady, careless breathing, I searched for apartments in distant cities, places where their faces could never find me again. 4 hours away, I found it. A small, clean apartment in a city where no one knew my name, where I would not be Mark, the weak one, but simply Mark. I contacted a lawyer. He listened to my story, his silence heavy. You can file for divorce on the grounds of abuse, he said finally, but it will be your word against theirs. Better to gather evidence. So I lived a double life. By day, I played the role of the docile husband, nodding at jokes, enduring the cousin's sneers. By night, I became someone else, a man sharpening his escape like a blade. The plan unfolded piece by piece. On a Monday morning, before leaving for work, I began calling the utility companies. Electricity, gas, water, internet, cable. All under my name. All scheduled for disconnection the following Tuesday. When would you like the service stopped? The operator asked. Next Tuesday morning, I replied, with a calm that masked the fire inside me. I moved down the list, canceled the car insurance, my car, my policy, removed my name from the supermarket account where she did her shopping, froze the additional credit card she carried in her purse. Then came the luxuries. Her gym membership, gone. Netflix subscription, canceled. Family cell phone plan, terminated. If they wanted to play games, then I would play too. But mine wouldn't last 3 hours. It would stretch for months, years. Kimberly noticed nothing. She continued with her false affection, her empty tenderness, the condescending smile I had once mistaken for love. She had no idea she was living in a house of cards, and I was already pulling the bottom one. The chosen day was a Tuesday. She left early for an important meeting that would keep her occupied all morning. She kissed me absent-mindedly at the door and said, "Perfect. I won't be home until late." Perfect indeed. I retrieved the suitcases I had hidden in the basement. Only the essentials went inside: clothes, documents, a few books that had carried me through my darkest nights. I left everything else behind. I didn't want souvenirs of her world. On the kitchen table, the same place where we had once shared coffee and laughter, I left a single sheet of paper. My handwriting was calm, almost elegant. Kimberly, I'm leaving. Enjoy your house without electricity, without water, without gas, without internet, without Netflix, without the gym, and without credit cards. The divorce papers will arrive soon. Let's see if this teaches you a lesson. I placed the note in the center of the table beside the empty sugar bowl she always forgot to fill. I locked the door behind me, slipped the keys into my pocket, and walked to my car. I didn't look back. There was no room for nostalgia, no room for doubt. Only a strange, exhilarating lightness I hadn't felt in years. The drive to my new life took 4 hours, yet it passed in a blur, every mile peeling away another layer of the weight I had carried. By the time I arrived, the chains were gone. My phone buzzed as I unlocked the door to my new apartment. Kimberly. The screen lit up with her name again and again. I blocked her number without hesitation. Then Timothy tried. Blocked. Ronald, blocked. Jason, blocked. One by one, I erased them from my life, the same way they had erased me during those 3 suffocating hours in the bathroom. I changed my number, deleted my social media, disappeared from their world like smoke in the wind. The divorce dragged on for 6 months. 6 months of cold signatures of formal words exchanged through lawyers. 6 months in which I rebuilt myself, piece by piece, away from their poison. And when the final papers arrived, I felt nothing but clarity. The man they had mocked, humiliated, locked away in darkness, he no longer existed. In his place stood someone they could never touch again. Kimberly hired the most expensive lawyer she could find, thinking that money would win her the war. But my lawyer was sharper, more prepared, and more determined to see this through. In the end, we each walked away with what was ours, but she had to pay me compensation for the emotional damage she had caused. I never looked back. 3 years passed. 3 years of peace. 3 years without hearing Kimberly's name or seeing the faces of her cousins. I had rebuilt my life from the ground up, brick by brick, in a city where no one knew me before. No one knew the man I had once been. Weak, a joke. Now I was someone else. I'd landed a job at a software company. The pay was better. The atmosphere was lighter. For the first time in years, I woke up excited to go to work. My colleagues respected me, not for what I could take, but for what I gave. There were no jokes at my expense. No whispered insults. I was just Mark. My apartment was small, but it was mine. Every piece of furniture, every decoration, every object in that space had been chosen by me, with my own hands, my own taste. No one to ask for permission. No one to answer to. I ate pizza on Tuesday nights because I could. I watched movies when I wanted to. And I started dating Sandra, a coworker who laughed with me, not at me. We met at the office coffee shop. Things with Sandra felt natural, easy. She knew I was divorced, but she didn't know the full story. I didn't need her to. I didn't need to be anyone but the man I had become. But life has a way of pulling you back into the past when you least expect it. It was a Saturday. I had planned to buy a shirt for an important presentation. I was in the store trying on clothes when I saw her. Kimberly. I froze for a second, caught between disbelief and a strange sort of detachment. She looked different. Worse. She had lost weight, the sharpness in her face replaced by hollow eyes, dark circles under them. Her clothes hung on her frame, too big, as if she hadn't bothered to care. She saw me, and the transformation in her face was immediate. Shock, relief, then despair. A mix of emotions that I had once known so well. "Mark," she said, rushing toward me, her voice pleading. "Please, I need to talk to you." My first instinct was to turn around, to leave, to walk away from this broken version of the woman I had once loved. But something stopped me. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe I wanted to hear what she had to say after all this time. "You look good," she said, forcing a smile, trying to sound casual. "Very good." I didn't respond. I just stood there, my eyes cold, waiting for her to say more. "Mark, please," she continued, her voice trembling now. "I know I hurt you. I know I treated you badly, but I need us to try again." Her eyes were red, her voice shaky, as though she'd been crying for days. "Try again?" I asked, incredulous. I had been gone for 3 years. "After everything, you want to try again?" "I haven't been able to move on," she confessed, her voice breaking. "Nothing has been the same since you left." And that was when she started telling me everything that had happened since I walked out of that apartment. As she spoke, I could feel a smile tugging at the corners of my mouth. It wasn't joy, not exactly, but something like it. When she got home that Tuesday and found my note, the house without electricity, without water, without gas, she panicked. She called the electric company, screaming, demanding to know why the service was cut off. The operator told her that the account holder had canceled everything, and if she wanted it back, she would have to pay a hefty deposit and fines. She spent nearly all of her savings just to reconnect everything and pay the penalties. When she went to the gym, they told her membership had been canceled. Her cell phone was dead because I had taken her off the family plan. For the first time in her life, she had to face the reality I had left behind. But it didn't stop there. Her family, the ones who had mocked me, turned on her. Her mother, who had once been indifferent to our problems, now told her that she had lost a good man over something so petty. Her father, who used to laugh at the jokes her cousins made at my expense, scolded her for ruining her marriage. And her precious cousins, the ones who had orchestrated so much of my misery, now treated her as the enemy. They said she was the problem. Timothy, who had always been the first to laugh at my expense, now called her hysterical. Ronald didn't even greet her at family gatherings, and Jason told everyone that she was dramatic, and that's why I left. "Mark," she whispered through tears, "my own cousins are blaming me for everything. Timothy told me I don't know how to keep a man. Ronald, he won't even look at me. They've turned on me, and now they're all telling me it's my fault." As she spoke, her voice cracking with each word, I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of satisfaction. There she was, standing in front of me, unraveling, broken by the very people who had once stood by her. The same people who had torn me apart for years. "I'm sorry, Mark," she said, her tears falling now. "Please, I know I messed up. I need you back. I need you to forgive me." But there was nothing left to forgive. Not anymore. I stood there looking at her, the woman who had once meant everything to me. But in this moment, she was just another part of my past. A past I had already left behind. "I think you're too late," I said quietly, my voice cold. And I walked away. The tables had turned in the most ironic way. Kimberly, the woman who had made me feel insignificant for so long, now stood before me, the one cast aside, the one who had ruined everything, the outcast. "I lost my job 6 months ago," she confessed, her voice breaking. "I spiraled into depression and missed so many days. My boss told me I needed help, professional help." Her eyes welled up. "Now I work in a call center, and I'm making barely half of what I used to." I let her words wash over me, but I remained quiet. All the years I had spent as her punching bag, all the insults, the rejection, the isolation, now she was living it. The weight of it had finally come crashing down on her. She continued, each word dripping with regret. "Everyone talks about you now. They say I lost a good man, that I was a fool for letting you go. Even my grandmother told me last week that I should have treated you better." I could hear the bitterness in her voice. She had become the one everyone whispered about, the joke, the tragedy, the woman who lost it all for the sake of fitting in. "Mark, please," she pleaded, her voice desperate. "We can start over. I've changed. I see now how wrong I was. I was so caught up in trying to fit in with my cousins, but you were the one who mattered. You were the only one who really mattered." I stared at her, seeing nothing but a shadow of the woman I once loved. Those green eyes I had once cherished, now nothing more than pools of desperation. "Do you remember that night?" I asked, my tone calm, unshaken. She hesitated, a flicker of discomfort crossing her face. "They said I needed to grow a pair," I reminded her, my voice soft but firm. "That maybe being locked in that bathroom would teach me a lesson. They mocked me for not being a real man." Her expression faltered, but she said nothing. "And now," I continued, "now they call you hysterical. They say you're dramatic, the one who doesn't fit in. You're the one who ruined everything this time, aren't you?" She stared at me, the hope in her eyes clear, as if waiting for me to finally forgive her, as if I'd understand her suffering, as if I could give her absolution. "You wanted to teach me a lesson back then, remember?" I said, my voice cold as ice. "Well, let's see if this lesson sticks. Let's see if this is the wake-up call you needed." Without another word, I turned on my heel and began to walk away. "Mark, wait!" she cried out, her voice desperate. I didn't slow my pace. I didn't turn. For the first time, I was in control. I was the one leaving, the one deciding the terms of this encounter. I reached the parking lot, my heart light, free. The weight that had followed me for so long, the bitterness, the pain, it was all gone. I had finally closed the door on that chapter of my life, and I did it on my own terms. The drive home felt surreal, as if I had left a lifetime behind me in those few short minutes. I smiled as I made my way back to my apartment, the weight of the past slipping away with each mile. Later, Sandra and I had dinner. I told her it had been a good day, but I didn't need to go into details. Some things are better left buried in the past. 6 months have passed since that encounter at the mall. Kimberly hasn't reached out to me since. I assume she's finally understood. Sandra and I moved in together last month. She knows everything, every detail of my story. She admires my strength, my ability to move forward. She treats me with a kind of respect I hadn't known was possible. Respect, real respect, that I had long forgotten existed. Sometimes, when I think back to those years with Kimberly, I can't help but be grateful. Grateful that I had the courage to leave when I did. Grateful for the lessons that pain taught me. It showed me my worth. It taught me not to tolerate disrespect. It taught me that real love is not a game, and it certainly never comes dressed up as cruelty. If you're in a situation like I was, know this. You don't have to stay. You deserve more than being treated like an object. You don't deserve to be the punchline of someone else's joke. Some lessons take longer to arrive, but they come. And when they do, they hit you exactly where you need them to.